expired domains, how you can quickly build domain authority and drive Google rankings in a much shorter time period than traditional outreach versus paying for links or basically other methods of building your link profile. So if you're not already familiar with backlinks, basically backlinks are one of the most important ranking factors for Google. So every time another business or website links to your website, this essentially counts as a vote of authority in the eyes of Google and will have a direct impact over time on your ability of your pages, on your content to actually rank. So without acquiring any links, and if you have no existing link profile, for example, maybe you just launched a few months ago or a couple of years ago, and you've really done no traditional PR or any type of link acquisition, and assuming that you're in a somewhat competitive space, it's going to be very, very difficult to rank for high intent software terms or to try and even target some of those other terms in your space and to actually rank for them, right? The biggest problem that I hear from marketing teams, from SaaS founders is how do we actually go and build backlinks? Because it takes a ton of time. It takes a ton of effort. It costs a ton of money to do, right? This is a potential solution, but I will say behind this that, exercise caution with using this strategy. This is definitely something that happens all the time naturally when businesses are acquired, for example. If you were to go out and acquire another SaaS product that is complementary to yours, and you actually acquire the business and the domain behind that, right? You would then basically be acquiring a domain that has existing authority, which kind of overlaps here. So I'll get a little bit more into that here in a second. But talking about what expired domains are, if you're not already familiar, it's kind of what it sounds like. Basically, an expired domain is a domain that has expired but no longer operates. It's no longer live. Maybe the business has gone under or no longer operates. Whatever reason, that domain is no longer being used, right? So if you were to actually type the domain into your browser and you try to hit the URL, you're typically getting a page unavailable, and it's no longer being used, right? But the domain behind that, it still exists, right? The domain itself still exists. There's just no content, no website. And the reason why there's such a big advantage behind expired domains is that, number one, they generally, if you search for them, you generally can find expired domains that have an existing profile, an existing link profile, meaning, again, they're no longer being used, but they have links from a ton of really, really powerful websites where you can then take and use that and basically redirect that into your business, into your website to give it a nice boost. The other thing is that, looking at expired domains, they're typically aged, right? Aged meaning they've already been indexed and crawled in the past. They've been registered. So the domain might have been first registered in 2010 or 2005. And why this is important is that it allows you to skip that indexing and crawling time that, new domains have, that it could take 6 months, 6+ months, where you're kind of in the sandbox with Google. Like basically Google's not allowing you to rank because it's a brand new domain. And both of these factors combined, right, can give you a huge boost when it comes to rankings, when it comes to customer acquisition, if leveraged properly. So, okay, great. Well, what's next? We know what backlinks are. We know what expired domains are. So how do we actually use this potentially to our advantage, right? So there are plenty of domain marketplaces out there. I'm sure you've heard of Namecheap, of GoDaddy, and others, where you can essentially go and purchase a domain name, or you can also shop for an expired domain name as well. All right, so here's what I mean by marketplace. So if you go on Namecheap, you'll see they have a marketplace here where they're selling different domains. They have different categories: popular, closeouts, XYZ, SEO friendly, et cetera, et cetera. And again, this is only one of many marketplaces available where you can purchase domain names that are expiring or that have already expired. And then, you own the domain name. So giving an example here of, again, why this is important. Here's an example of a domain name that was for sale recently, instascreener.com. So we can start to already see that, okay, it has a bit of authority already, right? I can see down here based on the graph when it was starting to build some links to it, previous organic traffic performance. But even more interesting than that, if I go into referring domains, I can start to then dig through and see, what type of quality domains were pointing to it, right? What type of links did it have? So I see yahoo.com, entrepreneur.com. For example, there's a direct link here to InstaScreener's website from 2022, right? So those are signals I want to look at high level. Did it have a sharp decrease in organic performance? What type of referring domains are pointing to it? Are they difficult to acquire links like from websites like Entrepreneur Inc., relevant to the industry and space, even competitors, right? Those are the type of links we want to see pointing to the domain. And again, we also want to ensure that if we're purchasing a domain, that it's within our close realm of topical authority and what our product does, right? So somebody that was purchasing or that would want to purchase instascreener.com, what you can do is if you go to Wayback Archive and you pop in the URL, you can then see what the live website looked like, right, in the past. So now I know that InstaScreener used to be a powerful influencer analytics tool basically for Instagram, right? And I can browse through, I can look at the blog post, I can look at the content, I can get an idea of what actually the business was. And again, that's one of the most important things to know about this strategy, although there are many and there are many pitfalls, that you're looking for a domain that is directly related to what your product does, right? And is in the same space, has links that'll be of value to you. And again, using tools like Ahrefs and using Wayback Archive, you can get a very, very good idea of that before you jump into anything. So here's an example and use case of another domain. This is an expired domain. You'll see it has a domain rating of 34 according to Ahrefs, 143 referring domains, hasn't been active for a few years. But again, this domain specifically was in the HR space, in the HR software space, right? The business no longer exists. There's no trademark behind it that's active or even, available. So this would be a great example of if you're launching a new product or you want to boost your existing rankings, you could purchase this domain. Again, there's a lot more to it than that, but high level, you could leverage this domain and either A, build on top of it from scratch as its own, standard secondary site, which is probably safer than the redirect for a lot of people, or you could potentially use a strategy to redirect this into your own existing website to pass that link value and to help drive rankings and customer acquisition. So kind of breaking this down a little further, I know I've said it a few times now. Again, if you are looking into doing this, I would highly, highly, highly advise you to do a ton of research, right? Have somebody that you actually consult with that has experience in doing this, because this is not 100% guaranteed, nor as with anything basically in the realm of SEO and getting creative, there are always risks, right? But high level on how you would approach this is basically, you're acquiring the domain number one after you've done your research on around trademark, around past organic performance, around the existing link profile, around all of those different factors. Great, you vetted it, you want to purchase it, you bought it, you own it, right? Now, how do you actually leverage that for your current business, for your current domain? Essentially, again, high level here. Step number one, you're going and building a blog post essentially that is talking about the acquisition of that domain, right? This is essentially a trust signal to Google and search engines that you've acquired the domain. Again, this happens all the time, right? Businesses are acquired. You acquire another SaaS product that's complementary to yours. Happens all the time, right? Happens all the time. So it is normal and natural. But you want to build a blog post and essentially announce that acquisition and have that on your website, right? The reason why that is getting into point number two. Then you're going to essentially redirect the expired domain into that blog post, right? So you're going to use a 301 redirect and direct the old domain directly into that blog post. And what that's going to do is it's going to pass that link value from the expired domain to your domain, right? Now, step three, you can start to add internal links from that post to the specific pages on your website that you want to boost rankings for, right? So you're linking, for example, to some bottom funnel use case pages, right, that are extremely hard, if not impossible, to get links to, or you're linking to some other problem-based content that you're trying to get to rank, right? You can add internal links and be very specific with the anchor text you're using, again, naturally in that original post to pass the link value. And then finally, step number four, probably getting ahead a little bit, but again, using Wayback Archive, you can take a look at the existing content that was on that website, and assuming there were 10 or 20, maybe 30, whatever, however many pages that existed there, of content that you can actually reuse and optimize and upgrade on your website, right? You can basically pull that over from Wayback Archive. You can copy and paste the content, and you can want to run a 301 redirect directly from that old post to the new post, right? To help quickly rank that content, and to get it moving really quick. So wrapping up, again, I've said this so many times, definitely an advanced tactic. Definitely use caution and do your research before ever considering this. But if you are successful with this, this is a way that you can gain, for example, hundreds of quality links that are probably next to impossible to actually go and acquire simply by using this method, right? And I think, again, for a lot of SaaS businesses looking to acquire a product, right, a complementary product out there on the market, maybe using a service like acquire.com or others, you can also consider the link profile and what impact that can have on your organic rankings and helping you to drive customer acquisition for your core product itself. Hope it helps.